I like it when I sit in my room and I hear you talk, because it's so lively and there's no seriousness in it. And that's really a good sign, because sometimes when we come to places like this, it seems to be so serious and you need to behave differently, or so I like it that we can create this atmosphere of, just sitting and talking and the way I like to share the practice of mindfulness is in that spirit, very easygoing, without making a big deal and without making it something holy, or like almost like with the senses. It's not a big deal. It's just like so not so much a doing where you get better at by trying harder, but rather a way of being. Actually also with the emphasis, a way of being together. To discover how we can, by being together in that space here, how we can support each other by just being who we are, just naturally being who we are, without making a show and without needing to be something else. And this way to share meditation or to share mindfulness is based on a very radical paradigm you find in the different spiritual traditions, and that is the insight or the experience that what we are most deeply looking for is available to us in this moment. So there's different, you could divide the different spiritual methods in two categories. There is what is called the development model, and that's all the practices which have as their paradigm or as their foundation that this is not it, and there's a path, and you walk that path and you use the method, and then in the distant future you will get there. So and what this distant future is maybe heaven or nirvana or enlightenment or and to, as you probably know, to a certain degree this kind of approach to our spiritual practice is helpful. But as you probably experienced yourself, since we are all so tense and stressed out anyway, and our life is filled with trying to get somewhere, trying to fix, trying to produce. We are production junkies. So the value of our life, the sense of contentment, the sense of well-being in our life, in our culture depends very much on what we produce how good we are. And it starts when we were very little. So it is quite. It's quite often that we didn't experience so much the sense of being loved for what we are, but rather we have the experience that we receive a welcome, that we receive love through what we produce, how good we are at certain things. And then when we bring this, and we bring it into our spiritual practice, of course, because we bring our mind into the spiritual practice, that's what we have to work with. So then the spiritual project is just another project in our life where we think we have to work and we are not good enough and all this stuff of failing and I can't do this and so sometimes I feel it's not so good for people to come to Buddhist centers or spiritual centers because their life becomes sometimes more burdensome. Another thing where we become more judgmental about ourselves and others. So stay away. So that's the paradigm of the development model. And then there is another approach to the spiritual path, and that is the discovery model, following the discovery model, where we are invited to discover that what we are looking for deeply is here, is available to us in this moment. So in this approaches, we base our being on that there is no path, there is no method, and there is nobody walking on the path. And probably for most of us, our practice or our work with the different spiritual methods we learn is like hopefully a healthy balance between those two. Maybe, and of course we are dancing in a paradox here, but there's no way to solve this, but maybe one way to put it is you develop so that you can discover that there's nothing to do. And part of that development is, for some of us, is actually to try quite hard for some years. And then, in a way, you could say you just waste your time by trying hard. But on the other hand, of course, when you have a moment of just being in that openness, then you see that trying hard was just necessary, was part of your journey. And I brought This time I want to read a little bit to you. I'm not doing it so much here, but somehow I came across this book today again. It's a book by Lama Yeshe, who is one of the two founders of the organization this center is part of. And this is a beautiful book, one of my favorite books. It's called Introduction to Tantra. And so the discovery model of discovering your freedom, which is innate, which is intrinsic, this is the tantric approach. And in the beginning of this book, Lama Yeshe writes about the very foundation of this approach, using a metaphor I'm also using quite often, the clouds and the sky. So he writes in a chapter which is called The Fundamental Purity of the Mind. According to the Buddhist teachings, no matter how confused or deluded we may be at the moment, the underlying and essential nature of our being is clear and pure. In the same way that clouds can temporarily obscure but cannot damage the light-giving power of the sun, so too the temporary afflictions of body and mind, or confusion, anxiety, can temporarily obscure but cannot destroy or even touch the fundamentally clear nature of our consciousness. Dwelling deep within our heart and within the hearts of all beings without exception is an inexhaustible source of love and wisdom. And the ultimate purpose of all spiritual practices, whether they are called Buddhist or not, is to uncover and make contact with this essentially pure nature. So in later there's a quote which I also said a few times here. He says, according to Tantra, perfection is not something that is waiting for us somewhere in the future. If I practice hard now, maybe I will become a perfect Buddha. Or if I behave well in this life and act like a religious person, maybe someday I will go to heaven. According to Tantra, heaven is now. According to Tantra, heaven is now. And everything that we need in order to be complete is within us, right at this very moment. So that is a really very beautiful pointer. Everything that we need in order to be complete is within us right at this very moment.